webinar. My name is Laura Murphy here on behalf of Tech Connect. I'm joined by Dan Reed. He's a program manager at Advanced Technology International, who is standing up this challenge, the Maritime Manufacturing Innovation Challenge, in its second year. And we're here to tell you how to apply, what makes a great submission, the incentives for applying, and the connection back to ATI and the other transaction authorities that are engaged with government customers, and the reason behind sort of why we're doing any of this in the first place. So before I get started, I want to encourage you to ask questions, because at the end we will open up live Q&A, and so I'll take all the questions that I can from the questions box over here in your control panel, and we'll answer as many as we can. If we don't get to yours, then we'll follow up with you. So if you have a question, whether it gets answered today or doesn't, it will get answered. And we'd love to hear what's on your mind. And so to that end, I'm going to walk through some of the logistics and why we're here, and then Dan will share with us a little bit more about, give us more context, a little bit more about scope, and tell us a little bit about how this went last year and what you could expect if you become a finalist also. So this is an open innovation prize competition. We want you to help solve some of the critical challenges facing U.S. maritime manufacturing. So here's the challenge. Why does it matter? This is an industry under critical pressure. There's so much going on that's with shipbuilding, repair, and maintenance to the maritime manufacturing industry and manufacturing sector that really impact defense, trade, and economic security. And so having a more resilient industrial base for that is so essential for readiness, commerce, and competitiveness. And we need to modernize and rebuild the sector and have bold new ways of doing that, right? So there are many things that widen the gap between, where we are and where we want to be. Aging infrastructure, workforce shortages, supply chain fragility, and things like that. And so the need is great. Sort of the barriers and the stakes, the barriers are there and the stakes are high. And so this is why we continue on year after year, really positioning this challenge and supporting our government customer in that. So in an Open Innovation Prize Challenge is a little bit unique. We're trying to reach new ways of thinking. A lot of times we can reach non-traditional solvers and innovators through this type of opportunity. It's a really not onerous application process. It's very short. It's a form. You're not submitting a white paper. It's non-confidential in nature, so everything you submit should be non-confidential. In fact, it's disqualified if you don't. So please be sure when you apply that you consider that. And the prize structure is really straightforward. It's no strings attached, and it's like direct to your account shortly after the pitch itself in September. So we'll talk a little bit more about this, but reasons to apply, there's a couple. You could obviously win prize money, but you can also meet really high impact government industry stakeholders that get a lot of visibility into what they're looking for, have meaningful conversations with them in person, and who knows, possibly strike up a future partnership. And I think Dan can speak a little bit more to that and the potential there. So these are some of the areas of interest. It's quite broad. I'm not going to walk you through all of these. They're on the website as well. But I would say, a lot of times people have questions like, do I qualify? Do I fit? I think consider the larger picture here of improving, modernizing the industrial base, and sort of how that all is securing a more resilient future for U.S. defense and the U.S. in general. When you submit, and can you contribute to that, then you're probably a fit. And the barrier to entry is not high to go ahead and submit. So there's no cost to enter. And if you fall into any of these categories, we absolutely would love to see something from you. So the competition timeline. So the deadline is June 23rd. That's not too long from now, but you certainly have time. We will notify semifinalists in mid-July, and then there's a pitch on July 29th for semifinalists. And then finalists will get notified in early August. We have roughly 10 pitch slots available. And then the finalist pitch will be September 23rd in person in National Harbor at Defense Tech Connect Innovation Summit. And then that evening after the pitch will be in the morning. That evening is a reception and winner announcement there in National Harbor at the Gaylord as well. And then we offer an optional and recommended continued engagement for all finalists. So we like to have quarterly check-ins and sort of understand how you're doing, what growth has happened, what needs you may have, and if we see opportunities to connect you or recommend something that you could be part of, we will. So it's a way for us to keep you in mind and also for us to understand how you've grown and how you are growing. So this is what you can expect for timing. The prize structure is also pretty straightforward. I mentioned that it's non-dilutive and no strings attached. So the first place winner will receive $25,000, second will receive $15,000, and third will receive $10,000. I mentioned the follow-on reporting, so you'll share kind of progress and we'll keep you in mind in our network as well. And that lasts for 2 full years. So how to get started, use this QR code if you don't already have the URL down, but review the challenge page, prepare your non-confidential submission, and submit before end of day June 23rd. And I am going to leave this up for now. There's much more to say, of course. I know there are going to be questions related to like exactly what phase and does my specific technology work, and we'll answer as much of that as we can. If something is super niche, then we'll try to take it offline. But before we get into those questions and digging a little bit more into exactly who qualifies, I'm going to let Dan take over here and speak more to the opportunity, the incentives, and sort of what we've seen in the past.
No, awesome. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, I just want to add a few more things to this to add a little bit of color into it. I was involved in the Maritime Innovation Forum last year, hugely successful event. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Just one thing to piggyback off the competition timeline that you were talking about a little bit earlier, Laura, if you could go back to that slide. So those are coming up soon on June 23rd. Once we receive all the submissions, we've got a bunch of subject matter experts here at ATI, Advanced Technology International, where we'll go through and evaluate and adjudicate those and do the down selection to the semifinalist pitch, and then the finalist notification in early August. If you do become down selected to a finalist, we will help you refine those pitches and work very closely with you to make sure that they are very good and ready for prime time on September 23rd when we go to the forum. Again, this year we're looking for potential panelists from the Navy. We are working to get some folks from high level at NAVSEA, also the submarine industrial base, and as well as the new PAE Maritime program office that the Navy's setting up. So that's going on right now. We'll have that in place to have some really, really good panelists. Another thing to take note of is, just like last year, we'll have essentially every major U.S. shipbuilder in the country represented there for the pitches, and that is a great opportunity for any company to connect and really highlight the technology offerings that you have. I won't get into too much detail, but some of the success stories from last year, we had several of our OTA programs, the National Shipbuilding Research Program, started a project that came out of the forum, as well as Ingalls Shipbuilding down in the Gulf, partnered with several robotics companies as well to start projects and also further agreements and things like that. So just wanted to highlight that, this is not just an exercise in presenting, but we're really trying to connect industry with the Navy and the shipyards to do something very productive and very valuable for the nation. So I just wanted to share that. I think those are the big things I wanted to share, Laura, and leave plenty of time for everyone to ask questions.
Yeah, and I think one question or one other thing I'd love to people may want to hear about, and I'd love to hear you speak to, is sort of the OTA involvement. So we've talked a little bit about Advanced Technology International standing this up. Can you explain kind of what ATI does and why it's connected into this, just at a high level? So there's a little bit of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Advanced Technology International, we're really at the forefront of managing research and development programs for the government. And we do that primarily through other transaction agreement programs. That's OTA programs. We have over 30 of them now. The value and benefit of those is really speed to need. It doesn't bypass any regulations, but it goes a lot faster from a contractual perspective than some of the traditional federal acquisition regulation programs. So we've got, I want to say, a dozen Navy based OTA programs that ATI manages, and we'll have representation from those OTA programs as well. Some of them are listed there at the bottom of the screen. We've got the Maritime Sustainment Technology Innovation Consortium. Some folks may have heard of that, Mystic, as well as many others. So that's also an opportunity and something that ATI is certainly can support with. Does that answer your question, Laura? You're on mute.
Thank you. Yes, it does answer my question. Thanks. All right, so we'll move to questions. We've got a lot coming in here. And we'll see what you all want us to speak to, and so we can prepare you for your submission. So one of them is, can nonprofit organizations such as school laboratories submit project proposals? So yes, there's no restriction on type of organization that could submit. I think you would just want to be sure that everyone, there's clarity around who would pitch, who would represent, and should you have the opportunity for a partnership, like what Dan was sharing, there's clarity around your ability to do that. So ultimately, we are serving a government customer. We do want there to be real follow-on work from this. So it would just be, if you're at an idea phase and not quite even looking or like timelining out prospective opportunity to pilot or put your work into action, you might be a little early. But if you do have that in mind, even if you are from a nonprofit or a school of any kind, then you would be a great fit. So just the ability to look and see that potential on the horizon would be important. Do you have anything else, Dan, on that? Or does that sound?
Yeah, just to back that up, we had several universities as well as research labs last year that made it through some of the down select. So absolutely, I was very much encouraged.
Okay, great. Another question is, what is the end U.S. Navy office sponsoring this, or who is your government customer? Are you able to share that?
Yeah, well, it's not one specific program office. We have, so ATI, like I was speaking about the different OTA programs, and we also operate the Navy Manufacturing Technology Program, 3 of the Centers of Excellence. So there will be sponsors from NAVSEA there, and as well as we're talking from folks from the Submarine Industrial Base office as well to be there to at the forum. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, let's see. Is this open to, we have a few questions about this. Canadian ventures registered with SAM.gov and NATO. We have questions about international. Yes, there is not a restriction on, for the challenge itself, on where your innovation comes from. We will not accept submissions from export controlled countries. If you aren't sure if that's you, we can help you find that information, but you probably have awareness. And so, but if it isn't, if you're not sure, then you can ask. And otherwise, we're open to that. The only restriction would come potentially later whenever we talk about some of the OTAs may have restrictions around like who can become members to respond to some of the federal opportunities that they curate, and then potentially partnerships with Navy, those may or may not, we can't really speak to what restrictions may look like in the future, but in terms of responding and showing up with strong innovation, we're open to non-US entities there. And let's see, what TRL level are we looking for? Do you want to speak to that, Dan?
Yeah, it can really pretty broad TRL level, anything from basic science research and development all the way to ready for implementation. and everything in between. So but we're really looking for things that are going to make a big impact to the shop floor. So probably, if I would give some advice, something a little bit higher on the TRL level would be better, because it
Mhm.
would be able to make impact sooner.
Mhm.
Does that answer the question?
I think it does. Yeah. I would say a sweet spot for this type of work tends to be like 3 to 7. But
Yeah,
when you look at the fact that we're very serious about like the potential for implementation, probably something
yeah, five,
more like
six.
4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe even sweeter. But if you have something truly innovative, there's also the question of like incremental versus like more monumental changes, what's possible. And if you've already got some traction, that would definitely be more important than your readiness level. So it just depends also kind of what you're doing, how it could scale, your plans and the traction you already have. But hopefully that helps everyone. We're not excluding anyone. If you only have an idea and that's it, it's probably too early. Um, and if we can't see clearly how this would benefit you, like how can we move the needle for you in the commercialization sense and make new introductions and support you and with this route, then it would also maybe be challenging. Something like an 8 or a 9 might be a little bit more difficult for us to see, but it's always possible. Another question is someone who knows you, Dan, apparently. But they said, if I have an innovative concept, am I better with this project or an SBIR?
If you have an innovative concept, are you better with this event or an SBR? I mean, the very general, but I would say it would depend on what it is. But I think this event is very flexible, and that it can open up to you a lot of different opportunities, whether that is working with one or more shipyards. There's opportunities to start working with the different OTA programs and Navy based programs that ATI operates and the Navy operates. And there's also opportunity to develop those connections directly with the Navy as well, which we seen happen last year. So SBR is also good. I think that's also more precision targeted for an opportunity that is a good fit. So I think that's how I would answer that. What's that person's name?
Let me find Michael Mowens.
Okay.
He and Kim Potter worked with you.
Okay.
Okay, Kim Potter thought you were maybe involved. Anyway, Michael will follow up with you, friend. Um, all right. I got a few questions related to this. We have multiple technologies ready. Can we submit more than one? Yes, you can. They need to be distinct. You should absolutely submit more than one entry if you have more than one solution. So that no restriction on that. We would love to see that. You will probably only be given one pitch opportunity. So we would choose the best of those submissions if you move forward. So consider that. Can individuals enter? I have not seen that in this type of challenge before. There's not a formal restriction on it. So sure. I mean, if you're not incorporated in any way, I think the challenges you're going to run into are not at this stage, but possibly later, when you try to.
Yeah. I, I think it's not a prerequisite at this time, but ultimately you're going to want it to be an entity that can do business with the federal government if we want to support our Navy and maritime industrial base, right?
Yeah, yeah. If you're looking for validation, this would be your first validation. It's not to say you couldn't. It's possible you're too early stage, but we're looking at primarily in challenges, open innovation challenges are working with non-traditionals, people who have never done business with the government for the last year or 3 years. And for early stage companies, this could be their first opportunity. So you don't have to have, other validation or traction, but if this is sort of your first time out of the gate pitching, or, you don't exist as a company, that would just be something you'd want to think about moving on quickly so you could, like Dan said, take advantage of the follow-on opportunities. And just to be clear about that, there is one other question about final deliverables. So what are the final deliverables? The question is, are there demos on ships, demos for demonstrating ideas, proving capabilities, things like that? So Dan spoke to some of the work that followed the last challenge, like some of the tangible results, and that's just a couple of things that we know of. The things that we can promise you are possible funding if you're one of the top three, like you will receive money, and introductions in the room. So the review panel will represent meaningful connections for you. The government customer will get a final report that contains qualified entries. They will see what it is that you're putting, together. And I guess sort of Scout's honor for our willingness to make the most of this for the government customer and to try to move the needle on behalf of the bigger mission. So can we promise you demos on real ships? No, because that really requires you be agreeing to do that and having those opportunities that align with your solution. But has it happened? Yes. And do we hope that it will again this year and have reason to believe that? Then yeah, we think that there could be all sorts of activity like that following this. Let's see. Would a completed SBIR phase 1 with NIST offer acceptable entry for a maritime measurement tool?
Yeah, a completed phase 1 project and then articulating how you would advance that further even more to benefit other areas or customers. I think that certainly was in the realm of the boundaries what we're looking at. Absolutely.
Cool. Is NAVFAC, NAVFAC, involved at all?
Not so much NAVFAC. No, we're involved more with Naval Sea Systems Command, NAVC, NAVC 05, and some of the PAE maritime offices, as well as the submarine industrial base, is mostly the folks that we're talking to and leveraging and hoping to bring onto the panel and such for this event.
Great.
Yeah.
This is a university representative said our solution was deemed awardable and competitive by DARPA ERIS. Would this be a good way of introducing the concept to POs as well?
I think so. Yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'm not sure if I understand this one, but let me read it out loud. Are you getting nonprofits to apply with supplier programs or run a manufacturing program where we align cohorts of defense companies to work together? I'm not really sure what that question is. I may need clarity. Do you understand what he's asking?
Not totally.
Okay. So Howard, please maybe expand upon that so that we can understand what you mean. Is the prize only for startups? We spoke to that sort of like type of organization. You can be an individual, you can be a research lab, you can be a company, you can be anything. We can award you, you can win. We do see most commonly early stage and mid stage companies applying, but sometimes commercial stage, commercial startups, C plus apply. We certainly hear from universities often. So it's really, really runs the gamut. Don't let that keep you from applying if you're considering it based on what sort of organization you represent. Someone asked, how is cybersecurity being addressed? I assume, is there a solution space on this for cybersecurity? Do we care about that as an area of interest?
I'm wondering, are they asking, is, is cybersecurity a technology focus area to submit, or how are we keeping this cyber secure for this innovation forum?
That's a great way of seeing the duality there. To speak to the second one, don't submit anything confidential. However, we do practice. We have we do work with the government. We do practice great data hygiene, and we will keep your information safe. But don't submit anything confidential. And in terms of the need or area of interest, Dan, do you think that's something that the government customer has interest in for this industrial-based challenge?
Yeah, I think that would fall in a subcategory under digitalization and connectivity. That's certainly something that's becoming more and more important as time goes on, particularly with the cybersecurity maturity model certification. Now that's being rolled out through a lot of the contracts and will continue to roll out as the different levels become required. So as there are innovative things like that, like I've heard nano cybersecurity, things like that to make things more efficient. That's certainly something that we want to look at. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Someone asked, are the judges open to completely novel bio-inspired hull designs and alternative modular propulsion systems for subsea vehicles? Or are they strictly looking for upgrades to traditional existing ship designs?
I think this challenge, if I could back up a step, is really focused on the manufacturing part of it, not so much the design aspect of what the ships look like. However, if there's some solution that has a novel, innovative design that's coupled with a very efficient and innovative manufacturing process, I think that will be the scope of what we're looking at. But I think just purely design, we really want to try to drive the cost and time out of shipbuilding and repair with what we're doing here. I think
Mm-hmm.
if I understood the question correctly.
I think that's a really great point of clarity. And apologies if we haven't spent more time on that. But yes, this is very much in alignment with the name. We are focused on manufacturing. That doesn't mean the government customer isn't interested in other things, but for the purpose of this specific challenge, we would be focused on that part of the process. Another question is, what does the pitch format look like? Great question. So, should you be selected as a semifinalist, you will pitch virtually for 5 minutes, and you'll follow that with 2 minutes of Q&A. That will just be held on like Teams or Zoom, something like that, with a review panel. And then, should you make it to the finalist round, actually the timing is the same. So you have an in-person pitch in National Harbor at Defense Tech Connect Innovation Summit, like I mentioned. It's a 5-minute pitch followed by 2 minutes of Q&A from an in-person live review panel. They're the only ones who will ask questions of you directly or, give feedback, offer contacts, whatever it is that they're going to use that space and time for, to help them make a determination about who the final 3 awardees will be. And so that is that. Is there any cost to apply? No, it is free to apply. It is, if you are chosen, it's free to attend the event. And the event is unique in that as I mentioned, it's held at Defense Tech Connect Innovation Summit. So this is a several hour portion across a 3-day networking, connection event for the defense ecosystem, right, in the defense space. So there are innovators there all the way from research to commercial startups and above. There are solution providers that are exhibiting on the expo floor, and they have really cool demos usually. We are co-locating the event with other really kind of interesting events that specifically I think work for this community, like the MOSA Industry and Government Summit, looking at modular open systems approach and having the tri-service involvement for that. So you'll have an opportunity to engage in a kind of a different route. And then the SBIR STTR Fall Innovation Conference also takes place. So you can hear directly from the agencies. They have a pavilion typically on the expo floor. We can meet them. And then they deliver a program that speaks to, how to work with them, what are they looking for, and things like that. So just a great kind of opportunity to not only pitch, but then use the other days that you're there as follow-on. So yeah, we recommend staying involved, getting involved. All right, I think we have time for one more. We've noticed in prior defense events, awards tend to favor established incumbent suppliers. What can a small startup do to boost confidence for reviewers? In this case, that is not true. Most of our finalists are non-traditionals. We have not had that be the case typically. So you don't need to worry about boosting anything. Um, and I think that is all we have for questions. Does anyone have any other, if anyone has any other questions, you can email us, challenges@techconnect.org. We are excited to answer anything that comes in. We'll follow up with any of the more niche asks related to specific technologies offline. And thank you so much, Dan, for sharing your insight, and everyone for calling in. Have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.